Okay, today I'm going to go through the example problems on page 200 in your workbook. They're the work problems, 10-5, and work problems are also frequent flyers on standardized tests, and so it's hard to tell how to set them up sometimes. And so just like in the time, rate, and distance problems that we just did, it's so helpful if we can learn how to set up the chart, and then we can know how to solve the problem. And then you will be an expert at solving these problems. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the examples and just talk through them and work through them here on the paper, and then you can see how I teach them. Okay, I'm going to read the problem, number 1, on page 200. Mary can clean the house in 2 hours. So I've already written that there. Mary, she can clean it in 2 hours. Good job, Mary. Tom can clean it in 3 hours. Tom's a little slower. If they work together, how long will it take to clean the house? Well, we're not going to just add these two things together and say, well, if she can do it in 2 and he can do it in 3, they must be able to do it in 5 together. Nope, that's not it. Because then you would clean a couple houses if you were able to do that and work together and clean it in 5 hours. No, if they work together, they're going to clean it in much less time than 2 hours or 3 hours or 5 hours. But we don't know how long that's going to take them. So we're just going to go ahead and say N. N is the number of hours that together, if they work together, they can clean that house. Okay, so here's the tricky part. Here's what you need. Part completed in 1 hour. This is the row that's going to be most helpful to you in solving this equation. So how long would it take Mary, or how much house could she clean in 1 hour? That's really what they're asking. Well, if she can clean a whole house in 2 hours, she can clean a half a house in 1 hour. So I'm just taking this number and putting it in the denominator with a 1 on top. If Tom can clean a whole house in 3 hours, well, in 1 hour, I bet he could clean a third of that house. Again, I'm just taking that number and putting it in the denominator under a 1. And together, they can clean a whole house in 1 out of n hours. We don't know what that is. So again, I'm just taking it, putting it in the denominator underneath a 1. And if I add Mary plus Tom equals how long it takes them together, I can find how long that is. So I'm going to just solve it. 1/2 plus 1/3 equals 1 over n. And if you remember, we've had some problems like this in the past where we have all these crazy numbers in the denominator plus variables, and we need to solve for that variable. So the way we do that is we find the least common multiple, and then everybody gets multiplied by that least common multiple. Well, the least common multiple between 2 and 3 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6. It's the smallest number that both of them can go into. But we also have to include this n. He doesn't want to be left out. So anytime you have a variable in the denominator, you also have to include him in the least common multiple. So everybody, now that you see me doing it, do you remember? Everybody gets multiplied by this 6n in the numerator. So I'm just going to go ahead and multiply it out. 6n times 1 is 6n over 2. 6n times 1 is, again, 6n over 3. I'm just going to pull down that denominator, equals 6n times 1 is 6n over n. I just pull that denominator down. Now I can start just crossing out and dividing to simplify this, because that's the whole goal, is to get rid of these silly denominators. Nobody likes those. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and then I just pull down the n. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and then I pull down the n, equals. Now there's no number to cross out and divide because there's just the 1 here. But if I just say n over n, well, that's 1, so it goes away too, and I'm just left with a 6. So now I can just do my handy-dandy algebra and solve for n. 3n plus 2n equals 5n. 5n equals 6. In order to solve for n, I need to divide by 5 because it's multiplying by n, so I'm going to do the opposite and divide. And that crosses out because it becomes a 1, and I get n equals 6 over 5, or if I make that into a mixed number, I get 1 1/5 hours. So if they work together, it will take them 1 1/5 hours. So 1 hour and whatever that is, 10 minutes, no, 12 minutes, 1 hour and 12 minutes to clean the whole house. Good job, Mary and Tom. I'm going to pause the video and get ready for my next example.